Leo was a young man of 22. He lived in a small, quiet town called Oakhaven. In Oakhaven, nothing ever changed. The sun rose over the green hills. The people went to work, and the birds sang in the trees. Leo worked at a small cafe near the train station. Every day, he served coffee and tea to travelers. He listened to their stories of big cities and beautiful oceans. Leo wanted to travel, too. He wanted to see the world, but he had no money. He lived in a small apartment with his cat, Luna. His life was simple, but he felt that something was missing. One Saturday morning, Leo went to help his neighbor, Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable was 80 years old. She was a kind woman, with white hair and a big smile. She lived in a large, old house, full of history. "Leo, dear," Mrs. Gable said, "my attic is very messy. I have many boxes from my father and my grandfather. Can you help me clean it? You can keep anything you find interesting." Leo agreed. He liked the smell of old wood and history. He climbed the stairs to the attic. It was dark and dusty. There were old clothes, broken chairs, and many brown boxes. Leo started to move the boxes. He cleaned the dust from the windows to let the sunlight in. In the corner of the room, under an old blue blanket, Leo found a small wooden box. It was different from the others. It had a gold lock, but the lock was broken. Leo opened it slowly. Inside the box, there was an old camera. It was heavy and made of black metal and glass. It was a very expensive camera. From many years ago, next to the camera, there was a small notebook and a single photograph. Leo looked at the photograph. It was a black and white picture of a woman. She was standing in front of a very large, beautiful building with many windows. She was smiling, but her eyes looked a bit sad. She was holding a red rose. Behind the photograph, someone wrote a message in beautiful handwriting. "Find me where the light meets the water. Paris, 1954. Leo felt a spark in his heart. Who was this woman? Why was the camera in Mrs. Gable's attic? He took the camera and the photo downstairs to Mrs. Gable. "Mrs. Gable, look at this," Leo said. Mrs. Gable put on her glasses and looked at the photo. Her hands shook a little. "Oh my," she whispered. "This is Elena. She was my brother's great love. My brother Thomas was a photographer. He went to Paris in 1954 to find her, but he came back alone. He never spoke about it again. He died many years ago, and he left this box here." "Did he ever find her?" Leo asked. "I don't know," Mrs. Gable replied. "He kept his secrets in that camera, but the camera is broken now. It hasn't worked for 50 years. Leo looked at the camera. He felt a strange connection to it. "I want to try to fix it," he said. Mrs. Gable smiled. "Then it is yours, Leo. Maybe you can finish the story that Thomas started." Leo took the camera home. That night, he sat at his small table. He used a soft cloth to clean the lens. He looked at the internal parts. He didn't know how to fix cameras, but he was patient. He went to the local library and borrowed books about old technology. He spent hours every night reading and learning. His friends at the cafe laughed at him. "Leo, why are you fixing that old thing? Just use your phone to take pictures," they said. "This is different," Leo explained. "This camera saw things we cannot imagine. It has a soul." After 2 weeks of hard work, Leo heard a small click. The shutter moved. The camera was alive again. But there was a problem. Inside the camera, there was an old roll of film. It was from 1954. If Leo opened the camera, the light would destroy the pictures. He needed to develop the film. But modern shops didn't know how to work with film. that was 70 years old. Leo searched the internet. He found a man named Mr. Miller, who lived in a city 3 hours away. Mr. Miller was a master of old photography. Leo saved his money from the cafe for a month. He didn't buy new clothes. He didn't go out with friends. Finally, he had enough money for the train ticket. On a rainy Tuesday, Leo traveled to the city. He found Mr. Miller's shop in a small, dark street. The shop was full of old cameras and the smell of chemicals. Mr. Miller was an old man with very thick glasses. A 1954 film, Mr. Miller said, surprised. "This is very rare. It might be blank. Or the pictures might be very blurry. Are you sure you want to try?" "Yes," Leo said firmly. "It's very important." Leo waited in the shop for 3 hours. He was very nervous. He walked in circles. Finally, Mr. Miller came out of the dark room. He was holding 3 small pieces of paper. "You are a very lucky young man," Mr. Miller said. The film was protected by the metal body of the camera. The images are clear. Leo looked at the pictures. The first picture was of the same woman, Elena, laughing in a park. The second picture was of a map drawn on a napkin. The third picture was the most amazing. It was a photo of a small, hidden door in a stone wall. Above the door, there was a sign, "The Garden of Lost Hopes." Leo's hands were shaking. He realized that Thomas didn't just go to Paris to take pictures. He went there because he was following a trail. And now, 70 years later, the trail was in Leo's hands. Leo went back to Oakhaven. He showed the pictures to Mrs. Gable. She cried when she saw Elena's laughing face. "Leo," she said, "I am too old to travel. But you are young. You have the camera, and you have the map. You must go to Paris. You must find out what happened to Elena. Maybe she is still there. Maybe her family is there." Leo looked at his small apartment. He looked at his cat, Luna. He looked at his simple life at the cafe. He was afraid. He didn't speak French. He had never been on a plane. But then he looked at the camera. He felt the weight of the metal. He thought about Thomas and Elena. He thought about the Garden of Lost Hopes. "I will go," Leo said. "I will find the truth." Leo began to prepare. He started to learn basic French. "Bonjour, merci, où est le jardin?" He worked extra hours at the cafe. He sold his old bicycle to get more money. The night before his trip, Leo sat by his window. He held the camera in his lap. He realized that his life was already changing. He wasn't just a waiter anymore. He was an explorer. He was a detective of history. He packed his bag. He put the camera, the notebook, and the 3 pictures inside. He felt a mix of excitement and fear. Paris was a big city. What if he got lost? What if the Garden of Lost Hopes didn't exist anymore? But he remembered the message, "Find me where the light meets the water." He closed his eyes and dreamed of a city of light, of a woman with a red rose, and of a mystery waiting to be solved. The next morning, Leo walked to the train station. For the first time, he wasn't there to serve coffee. He was there to buy a ticket to the airport. "One way to Paris, please," Leo said to the man at the ticket window. The man smiled. "A big adventure, the biggest," Leo replied. As the train pulled away from Oakhaven, Leo looked out the window. The green hills looked the same. But Leo felt like a different person. He opened Thomas's old notebook. On the first page, Leo wrote his own name. The airplane landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris at 6 o'clock in the morning. Leo did not sleep during the long flight. He was too excited. He looked out the window and saw the clouds turn orange and pink. When he stepped off the plane, he felt a cold breeze. It was autumn in France. The airport was very big and very loud. People were walking fast. Everyone was speaking French. Leo felt very small. He held his bag tightly. Inside the bag, Thomas's old camera was safe. He felt the weight of it, and it gave him courage. "I can do this," Leo whispered to himself. He followed the signs to the train station. He needed to go to the center of Paris. He bought a ticket and sat by the window. As the train moved, Leo saw the houses of the suburbs. They looked different from the houses in Oakhaven. They were made of gray stone with blue roofs. Finally, the train arrived at Gare du Nord. This was one of the largest train stations in the world. Leo stepped onto the platform. The air smelled of coffee, old metal, and expensive perfume. He walked out of the station and stopped. Paris was beautiful. The buildings were tall and old. The streets were busy with small cars and people on bicycles. Leo took out his phone and found the address of his hotel. It was a small, cheap hotel in a district called Montmartre. Leo walked through the streets. He saw a bakery, a boulangerie. The smell of fresh bread was amazing. He was very hungry. He went inside. "Bonjour," Leo said. He felt nervous. "Bonjour, monsieur," the woman behind the counter replied. "One croissant, please," Leo said. Pointing at the golden pastry, he ate the croissant while he walked. It was the best thing he ever tasted. It was warm and buttery. He felt a little more like a Parisian. He found his hotel. It was in a narrow, steep street. His room was very small. It had a bed, a chair, and a window that looked out over the roofs of Paris. He could see the white dome of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica on the hill. Leo sat on the bed and opened his bag. He took up the 3 photographs from 1954. He looked at the third photo again, the photo of the small door in the stone wall with the sign, "The Garden of Lost Hopes." He also looked at the map drawn on the napkin. The map was old. Some of the names of the streets were hard to read. Thomas had drawn a small X near the River Seine. "I must start at the river," Leo decided. He left the hotel and walked toward the river. Paris is a city for walking. Leo walked for hours. He saw the Eiffel Tower in the distance. It was much bigger than he imagined. He walked past the Louvre Museum and saw the glass pyramid. But Leo was not a normal tourist. He was looking for a specific stone wall. He reached the banks of the River Seine. The water was green and calm. Many people were sitting by the water, reading books or talking. Leo walked along the river for a long time. He looked at every wall. He looked at every door. By the afternoon, Leo was very tired. His legs ached. He sat on a stone bench near a bridge called Pont Neuf. He felt a bit sad. Paris was so big. How could he find one small door? From 70 years ago, maybe the door was gone. Maybe the wall was destroyed during the construction of new buildings. "Are you lost, young man?" Leo looked up. An old man was sitting on the other end of the bench. He was wearing a beret and painting a picture of the river. "This is very old," the painter said. His English was good, but he had a strong French accent. "I remember a sign like this, but it was not a garden for flowers. It was a place for artists." Leo felt a jump of excitement. Where was it? "In the old days, near the Latin Quarter," the man said. "There were many hidden gardens behind the big houses, but many of them are private now. You see that street over there, Rue de la Harpe? Start there. Look for the houses with the iron gates." Leo thanked the man and ran toward the Latin Quarter. This part of Paris was very different. The streets were even narrower. There were many bookstores and small cafes. Leo walked slowly now. He checked every gate. He turned into a very quiet street called Rue des Secrets. It was a dark street with very tall stone walls on both sides. There were no shops here, only old houses. Leo walked to the end of the street. There, in the shadows, he saw it. It was a stone wall. It was covered in green ivy. And in the middle of the wall, there was a small, heavy wooden door. It looked exactly like the door in the photograph. Leo's heart was beating fast. He walked to the door. The sign "The Garden of Lost Hopes" was gone. Instead, there was a small brass plate. It said, "Atelier de Elena, Elena's studio." Leo gasped. Elena. The name was the same. He reached out his hand to knock on the door. But he stopped. What if Elena was not there? What if she didn't want to see anyone? What if the name was just a coincidence? He looked at the old camera hanging around his neck. He remembered Mrs. Gable's tears. He remembered Thomas's mystery. Leo knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. For a minute, there was silence. Leo thought nobody was home. He turned to walk away. But then, he heard a sound. A key turned in the lock. The door opened slowly. A young woman stood there. She was about Leo's age. She had dark hair and bright green eyes. She was wearing an apron covered in colorful paint. She looked at Leo with surprise. "Bonjour," she said. "Hello," Leo said. "I am looking for Elena." The girl looked at him strangely. "My grandmother's name is Elena, but she does not see many people. Who are you?" Leo took the black and white photograph. Out of his pocket, he showed it to the girl. "My name is Leo. I found this photo in an attic in England. It belonged to a man named Thomas." When the girl saw the photo, her face went white. She looked at the woman in the photo. Then she looked at Leo. "Thomas," she whispered. "The English photographer." "Yes," Leo said. Did she know him? The girl opened the door wider. "Please, come inside. My name is Julie. You should talk to my grandmother." Leo stepped through the door. He wasn't in a street anymore. He was in a beautiful, hidden garden. There were trees with golden leaves, a small fountain, and statues of cats. It was a peaceful paradise in the middle of the busy city. At the end of the garden, there was a small house with large glass windows. This was the studio. Inside, Leo could see many paintings. "Wait here," Julie said. She went into the studio. Leo stood in the garden. He felt like he was in a dream. He looked at the fountain. The sun was setting, and the light hit the water. It was exactly like the message, where the light meets the water. A few minutes later, Julie came out. Behind her, a very old woman walked slowly. She was leaning on a cane. She had white hair, but her eyes were the same green eyes as Julie. She was wearing a red silk scarf. The old woman stopped in front of Leo. She looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at the camera around his neck. "Thomas had a camera like that," the old woman said. Her voice was soft and beautiful. "He told me he would fix it. He told me he would come back." Leo felt a lump in his throat. He handed her the photograph. "He never forgot you, Elena. He kept this in a gold box his whole life." Elena took the photo. A single tear ran down her face. She smiled. And for a moment, she looked exactly like the girl in the picture. "Come," Elena said. "Sit with me. Tell me about Thomas. Tell me everything." Leo sat with Elena in the garden. As the stars began to appear over Paris, he told her about the attic, about Mrs. Gable, and about his long journey. But Elena had her own story to tell, and as she began to speak, Leo realized that the mystery was much bigger than a lost love. There was a secret hidden in the paintings in the studio, a secret that Thomas wanted to protect. "Leo," Elena said, looking at the camera. "Did you look inside the back of the camera? Not the film area, but the small compartment behind the leather." Leo shook his head. "No, I didn't." "Thomas was a brave man," Elena said. "He didn't just take pictures of me. He was a messenger. In 1954, things were very dangerous. He hid something inside that camera. Something that belongs to my family. Something that stayed hidden for 70 years. Leo took the camera. His hands were shaking. He looked at the leather casing on the side. He felt a small bump. Open it, Elena whispered. The garden was very quiet. The only sound was the water in the small fountain. Leo held the camera in his hands. It felt different now. It was not just a machine for pictures. It was a container for a secret. Elena and Julie watched him. Their eyes were wide. Leo looked at the side of the camera. He saw the black leather. It looked normal. But when he pressed his thumb near the corner, he felt something hard. It was a small, flat object. I need a small knife or a tool, Leo said. Julie ran into the studio and came back with a small metal spatula. Leo used the tool very carefully. He lifted the edge of the old leather. The glue was 70 years old, so it was dry and easy to move. Under the leather, there was a tiny, hidden pocket made of thin silk. Leo reached inside with 2 fingers. He pulled out 2 things, a small silver key and a folded piece of very thin paper. Leo gave the key to Elena. She held it in her palm. Her hand was shaking. This key, she whispered. This is the key to my father's desk, but the desk was lost many years ago. Leo unfolded the paper. It was not a letter. It was a drawing. It was a map of a very famous place in Paris. On the map, there was a specific path marked with red ink. The path led to an old tomb with no name. Next to the tomb, Thomas had written a number. Why would Thomas hide a map to a cemetery? Leo asked. Elena sat back in her chair. She looked tired but determined. In 1954, my family was in trouble, she began. My father was a famous painter, but he was also a collector of history. He had a collection of letters, written by very famous artists. Van Gogh, Monet, and Renoir. These letters were worth a lot of money. Julie gasped. Grandmother, you never told me about letters. I wanted to protect you, Julie, Elena said. In the 1950s, a group of bad men wanted to steal the letters. They followed my father everywhere. My father gave the letters to Thomas. He told Thomas, hide them where no one will look. Only a person with the camera and the key can find them. Elena looked at Leo. Thomas was a hero. He didn't just leave me because he didn't love me. He left to protect the secret. If the men found him with me, I would be in danger too. Leo looked at the map, the numbers 1954. He said, it is the date they met, but maybe it is also something else. It is a code, Julie said. She was looking at the map. Over Leo's shoulder, in that cemetery. Every section has a number. Section 19, row 5, grave 4. We must go there, Leo said, tomorrow morning. But it is dangerous, Elena warned. The men from 1954 are gone. But their families, they are still rich and powerful. They still watch this house. They want to buy this garden. Because they think the treasure is here. That is why I cannot pay the taxes. They make everything difficult for me. Leo realized the truth. Elena was not just a lonely old woman. She was a woman fighting to keep her history. If Leo found the letters, Elena could sell one to a museum. She could pay her taxes and keep her beautiful garden and studio. She could save Julie's future. I am not afraid, Leo said. I came from Oakhaven to find the truth. I will find those letters. That night, Leo stayed in the small guest room. In the studio, he could not sleep. He looked out the window at the garden. He thought about his life in the cafe. A few weeks ago, his biggest problem was a cold cup of coffee. Now, he was a detective in Paris. Early the next morning, Leo and Julie met in the garden. Julie wore a large coat and a scarf to hide her face. Leo put the camera in his bag. We must be careful, Julie said. If someone follows us, we must separate. They took the metro, the Paris subway. It was crowded and loud. Leo watched the people. Did that man in the gray suit look at them? Was that woman watching Julie? He felt nervous. They arrived at the Père Lachaise cemetery. It was a huge place. It looked like a city of the dead. There were thousands of stone tombs, tall trees, and narrow paths. The air was cool and smelled of wet stone and moss. They walked for a long time. They used the map to find section 19. It was an old part of the cemetery. The tombs here were covered in ivy. Some of the stones were broken. Row 5, Leo whispered. They counted the rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we need grave number 4, Julie said. They walked past 3 tombs. The 4th tomb was very small. It was made of gray marble. There was no name on it. Only a small carving of a bird swallow. Leo looked at the base of the tomb. He saw a small hole near the ground. It was hidden behind a thick bush. The key, Leo said. Julie gave him the silver key. Leo knelt on the ground. He moved the branches of the bush. He saw a small iron box. Built into the stone of the tomb, there was a keyhole. Leo put the key into the hole. It was difficult to turn. The metal was old and rusty. He pushed harder. The box opened. Inside the iron box, there was a package. Wrapped in thick, waterproof oilcloth, Leo pulled it out. It was heavy. Is this it? Julie asked, her voice trembling. Suddenly, Leo heard a footstep on the gravel path. Crunch, crunch, crunch. A man appeared from behind a tall tomb. He was tall, wearing a black coat and leather gloves. He was not old, but he had a very cold smile. Good morning, the man said. His English was perfect. Thank you for finding that for me. It saved me a lot of work. Leo stepped in front of Julie. He held the package behind his back. Who are you? My name is Victor, the man said. My grandfather was a friend of Elena's father. We have been waiting for someone to fix that camera for a long time. We knew Thomas hid the map inside it. We just needed a clever boy like you to show us the way. Victor held out his hand. Give me the package, Leo. If you give it to me, you and the girl can leave. If you done well. This is a very quiet place. No one will hear you. Leo looked at Julie. She was terrified. Then he looked at the camera bag on his shoulder. He remembered Thomas. Thomas was a photographer. He knew how to use light and shadows. Leo, give it to him, Julie whispered. It's not worth our lives. Leo looked at the man. He noticed that Victor was standing in a spot where the sun was shining directly into his eyes. Okay, Leo said. I will give it to you, but I want to see what is inside first. No, Victor said. Now Leo reached into his bag. But he didn't grab the package. He grabbed Thomas's camera. Wait, Leo shouted. Look at this. Leo pointed the camera at Victor and pressed a button. In 1954, cameras had very powerful, bright flashbulbs. Leo had fixed the flash yesterday. A huge, blinding white light filled the dark path. It was like a small explosion of light. Victor screamed and covered his eyes. He was blinded by the flash. Run, Leo shouted. Leo grabbed Julie's hand. They ran through the cemetery. They didn't follow the paths. They ran over the grass. Between the tombs and under the trees, Leo's heart was drumming in his chest. They reached the main gate and jumped into a taxi. Julie shouted to the driver, "Go!" The taxi moved into the busy traffic of Paris. Leo looked out the back window. He saw Victor standing by the gate, looking angry. But the man didn't have a car. They were safe. Leo looked at the package in his lap. He opened the oilcloth. Inside, there was a leather folder. He opened the folder and saw hundreds of papers. They were old, yellowed letters. He saw the signatures, Vincent, Claude, Paul. But there was something else, a small, blue envelope with Leo's name on it. My name, Leo said. How? He opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from Thomas, written many years ago. To the person who fixes my camera. If you are reading this, you have a brave heart. You have found the letters, but the letters are not the real treasure. Look at the back of the letters. Look at the sketches. Leo turned the letters over. On the back of the famous artist's letters, there were beautiful, original drawings. These were not just letters, they were unknown artworks by the greatest painters in history. They were worth millions of dollars. And there was one more thing, a photograph of Thomas and Elena. They were sitting in the garden, young and happy. On the back, Thomas wrote, "The light always finds the way home." "We did it," Julie whispered, tears in her eyes. "We saved the garden." Leo looked at the city of Paris through the window. He felt a great sense of peace. He was just a boy from a small cafe that he had changed the history of a family. But as the taxi drove toward Elena's house, Leo saw a black car following them. Victor was not finished yet. The taxi moved fast through the streets of Paris. Leo looked out the back window. The black car was still there. It turned when the taxi turned. It stopped when the taxi stopped. "Julie, he is following us," Leo said. His voice was low. He did not want to scare the driver. Julie looked back. Her face was pale. "He wants the letters, Leo. He won't stop." "My grandmother's house is not safe." "Then we don't go to the house," Leo said. He thought quickly. "Is there a police station near here?" "Yes," Julie said, "but Victor is rich. He has friends. We need a more public place. We need people to see us." Leo looked at the leather folder in his lap. He looked at the old camera around his neck. Then he saw a sign for the Musée d'Orsay. This was one of the most famous art museums in the world. "Tell the driver to go to the Musée d'Orsay," Leo said. "Now." Julie told the driver in fast French. The taxi turned left and crossed the river. A few minutes later, they arrived in front of the huge museum. It was an old train station, made of stone and glass. There were hundreds of tourists outside. Leo and Julie jumped out of the taxi. Leo paid the driver, and they ran toward the museum entrance. Behind them, the black car stopped. Victor got out. He looked very angry. He started to walk toward them. But the museum security guards were watching the crowd. Leo and Julie went inside. The museum was magnificent. There were huge statues and paintings everywhere. They ran to the upper floor, where the most famous paintings were kept. They stopped in a large room full of Van Gogh paintings. Leo was breathing hard. "Why are we here?" Julie whispered. "Look," Leo said, pointing to a desk near the wall. A man in a suit was sitting there. He was a curator, a person who looks after the art. "If we show the letters to the museum, Victor cannot steal them. Once the world knows. The letters are here. They are safe." They walked to the desk. "Excuse me," Leo said to the curator. "We have something very important. We have letters and sketches by Van Gogh and Monet." The curator smiled kindly. "Many people say that, young man. Usually, they are just old copies." "These are not copies," Leo said firmly. He opened the folder and showed the blue envelope with Thomas's name. Then he showed the back of one letter. The curator took out a magnifying glass. He looked at the sketch for a long time. His eyes grew very large. His hands started to shake. "Where did you get this?" the curator asked. "It's a long story," Leo said. "But there is a man outside named Victor. He is trying to steal them. Please call the security." The curator picked up his phone. He spoke quickly. Within 2 minutes, 4 security guards arrived. At the same time, Victor walked into the room. He saw the guards. He saw the curator holding the folder. Victor stopped. He knew he lost. He could not steal art from a national museum. In front of 50 witnesses, he turned around and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of tourists. "Is he gone?" Julie asked. "Yes," the curator said. "And these sketches, they are amazing. They are a treasure for France. We must call the experts to verify them. But I am almost sure they are real." Leo was sitting in Elena's garden. It was a sunny afternoon. The trees were gold and red. Elena was sitting in her chair, drinking tea. She looked much better. She was wearing her favorite red scarf. The news of the lost sketches of Paris was everywhere. The museum bought the sketches for a very large amount of money. Elena was now very rich. She paid all her taxes. She fixed the roof of her studio. She even bought a new garden bench. Leo, Elena said, you saved my home. You saved my father's history. How can I thank you? Leo smiled. Being part of the story was enough for me, Elena. No, Elena said, Thomas wanted you to have a life of adventure. He hid that map for 70 years because he was waiting for someone like you, a person with a kind heart and a brave soul. Elena handed Leo a small envelope. Inside, there was enough money for Leo to travel to any country in the world. Go, Elena said, take the camera. Use it to see the world. Don't go back to the cafe yet. There are too many stories waiting for you. Leo looked at Julie. She was painting a picture of him. Will you come back to visit us? She asked. Always, Leo said. Paris is my second home now. The next day, Leo went to the airport, but he was not going back to Oakhaven. He was going to Rome, then to Greece, and then to Tokyo. He had his bag, his notebook, and Thomas's black camera. Before he boarded the plane, he took one last photo of the Eiffel Tower. He looked at the picture on the screen of his phone, which he used for light. But then he felt the weight of the old camera. He realized that he didn't need a phone to remember this moment. He remembered it with his heart. He took out his notebook and wrote a final message. Life is like a camera. Focus on what is important. Capture the good times. Develop from the negatives. And if things don't work out, take another shot. Leo boarded the plane as the city of Paris grew smaller below him. He felt a great sense of freedom. He was no longer the waiter from the small town. He was Leo, the photographer. He was Leo, the traveler. And somewhere in the clouds he felt that Thomas was smiling. The camera was finally home, and a new story was beginning.